right, it looks like we've got everybody in. A couple of people just staggering at the end. We did have over 100 people register for this webinar. You can see from the participant list that we're just up and around 20 at the moment. So there are maybe more people that join. Some people may be caught in the snow here in Ontario. We've got, I think, really much in North America, we've had some pretty significant weather. So if you need to drop off at any time, just know that the recording will come your way. And if you've made it to join us, welcome. We're really glad to have you. So my name's Catherine Broman, and I'll kick things off this afternoon. So we always start with a land acknowledgement here at Queen's, recognizing the fact that Queen's University is situated on traditional Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee territory. And like every day, we're grateful to be able to live, learn, and play on these lands. So a quick mention to this webinar is what we call a content webinar, meaning that we really won't go into the Master of Digital Product Management program. If you're more interested in the program, we do have an upcoming webinar on February 9th, and this will walk through the details of the program itself. But today we're going to talk more about content, which is really looking at the concept of how do we modernize our skills in the age of AI, and really how is this discipline changing as we welcome in a lot of these new enabled AI capabilities. So I'm Catherine Broman. I'm the academic co-director from the Smith School of Business here at Queen's. I'm the founding director of the Master of Digital Product Management program. My background is years back, before doing my PhD, I was involved in an early stage startup. We did some work down in Silicon Valley, sold that startup. And as part of that, I really was always kind of navigating in the digital product space. I took a turn in my career in my early 30s and pursued my PhD. And now my research is in really looking at modern methods related to digital product management and digital transformation. And so now, of course, with the age of AI, we had to make some changes in our program. We've onboarded Dr. Christian Muse, who's actually from our School of Computing, and he's an expert in AI. And so really a lot of what we're going to talk about today is these conversations we're having around how the digital product management discipline or set of practices is changing in the age of AI. So to kick us off, I thought it would be a good way to get started is really, or sort of level set, is this idea of the question about how AI is going to change the job market. Now, this is some statistics from McKinsey. I think a lot of the different consulting companies are starting to work on this, but the argument is consistent, is that AI will create as many jobs as it displaces. So what we're starting to see is almost a shift in the workforce, right? And according to McKinsey, 11.8 million workers currently in occupations with shrinking demand. So you can see those customer service and support, office support, food services, production work are going to move into different lines of work by 2030. So if you take a look at where the opportunities for growth are in these AI-enabled new kind of job opportunities are really around health professionals, looking at the changing and the transformation of how we deliver health, right? Going to STEM professionals. So this is looking at really science and technology, engineering and math. What's really interesting here is when you think about builders. And so when we look at builders, this metric, what it's saying is that this is kind of stabilized in terms of occupations. But over the last 5 years or so, we've seen what these builders come to light. And what a builder is really somebody within the organization who's able to see the traditional way of doing things and change or modernize the way that traditional practice or process was done. And builders are really interesting types of career professionals because they don't really just rest on their heels in the status quo. They get on their toes and they really start to think about how to make things new and different. And that's the one cool thing about digital product management as a practice or a profession, is that one of the fundamental criteria that defines a digital product management professional is their ability to get on their toes and build. Traditional management's going to see a swing, and this is really around the idea of the fact that managers are going to have to be more comfortable with AI and technology and data. So that's a pretty major change. And then we see some exciting things going on in creative disciplines. So if you think about film as an example, so much work around at the intersection of technology and film. And then we get into property, and all the kind of base level disciplines are starting to become more AI enabled. And so depending on where you're at in your current profession, right, there's a real opportunity for you to what we call upskill. And that's really what we want to talk about today. So just a couple of sort of pragmatic or things to keep in mind over this next hour is that there is a Q&A in the as part of this webinar. So we can really get a dual channel going. And wherever you're coming in from, like whatever your discipline is, whatever your current job is, don't be afraid to ask us questions. I'm going to introduce you to the panelists here in a second, but there's basically myself and three others on the webinar. And while one of us is talking, the other three of us are looking for things to do. So please do get on your toes, if you will, and ask these questions for us, because we can certainly provide you with more value in the Q&A, as well as what we're going to share here on the sort of the direct channel. So on the topic of upskilling, really what we want to focus on, and this is the beginning of a series of webinars I want to do on this topic, is that the growth and demand for jobs requiring, that are growing really demand a higher level of education. And so specifically in the areas of digital skills. So not only do we know that the overall job labor market is going to have a higher demand for socially emotional skills. So that really what that comes down to is if we buy into the idea that we're moving towards more automation and robots, right? The whole part of how we run organizations that depend on humans is going to be really important. So the socio-emotional development in the maturity around understanding people and emotions is really important. The other critical skill is around these digital skills. So what are digital skills? The work in this space is calling on four. So the first is data and analytics skills, all right, and AI and automation skills, and product management skills, and the last one is digital strategy and transformation. So if you know our professional graduate programs here at Smith, you'll know that we have a Master's of Management and Analytics, we have a Master's of Management and Artificial Intelligence. What we're focusing on today is the Master's of Digital Product Management, which really looks at skills-based 3 and 4, which is the idea of product development skills and the idea of digital transformation and strategy skills. And so that's why we're here today, is to really try and understand how, if you're sitting in a current position that's related to really digital innovation or creating new ways of doing things, how can you actually upskill, or what's some ways that you can really understand how this profession is being modernized now that we're bringing in AI. So one thing I'll say before I introduce the panel is you'll notice that AI in this definition is its own separate skill. And so we here at Smith have put a pause on the MDPM program for 6 months, primarily because we recognize that AI and product are starting to merge together. And so what the focus is for us today is less about building out those large language models and AI solutions, and more about really thinking about how AI is changing the way that product managers think about their job, do their job, change the way the products that we build. And that's why I've pulled together this panel group in order to inform us as how we move forward. Oh, and this is perfect. My colleague Christian Muse has just joined. And so he's my counterpart in the School of Computing, and he can really weigh into this AI conversation once we get started. So welcome to Christian.
I just actually wanted to pop in quick and say a quick hello. I do need to run and teach another class on artificial intelligence, conveniently enough, but yeah, just wanted to say a quick hi and enjoy the webinar.
Excellent. Thank you, Christian. All right, so introducing our panelists. We do have three Masters of Digital Product Management alumni. So Chris Hayward is our first, and I'll ask the three now to come off show their sort of turn their cameras on and join us. And what I want to do is give each of these individuals an opportunity to introduce themselves. So you can read who they are, who they work for, but I'll ask in this order for each of you just to introduce yourself, a bit of your background with the audience. So Chris, if you want to go first.
Yeah, sure. Hi, good morning, everybody. Well, morning where I am, it's Calgary. My name is Chris Hayward. I am Principal Product Manager for Consumer Digital Portfolio at Petro-Canada, so a Suncor company. My team stewards the Petro-Canada retail app, the PetroPass commercial app, and then any kind of marketing technology stack that supports our PetroPoints loyalty program and customer orchestration journey. I have about 6 years, 6.5 years at Suncor. Previously, I worked for Apple for about 9 years. And yeah, like Catherine said, I'm a graduate of the inaugural year of the MDPM program. So happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. And Chris was one of those brave souls in the first year that basically knew this was important, but we really didn't know, kind of how important it was or really what we were doing. And so he is definitely one of our key students in that cohort that really helped us shape a lot of the content that we talk about today. So welcome to Chris. All right, Rohit.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rohit Bhana, and I have 2 decades of work experience and currently working as a consultant in product delivery and handling multiple initiatives in a digital IT space, especially in AI, cyber, and OSS. So that's about me.
No. Excellent. And Rohit is a
Yeah.
humble guy. So I think that if I was on a panelist, he's a big open banking guy. Lots of opinions around open banking and experience and thinking about real novel ways of doing things. So certainly pick his brain in the back channel if that's something that you're interested in. And we'll get to know him a little bit more as I force him to tell stories and a bit more about himself, which is never his comfort zone. So anyway, thank you, Rohit. And
Thank you.
Danielle.
Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle Francisket, and I've spent nearly 2 decades in the employee assistance program industry, which, if you're not familiar with, it's a workplace benefit designed to support employees and their family members with life, mental health, and work-related challenges. And I started when many things were still analog. So paper-based case notes and invoices and primarily telephonic and in-person services. So I've witnessed the digital transformation of the industry firsthand, which has been really neat to observe. I've been in product for the last 5 years. I just completed the MDPM program this past September, and I'm currently working at Curlink Healthcare on the user experience for our member portal and leading the strategy for our AI solutions.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Danielle. And Danielle's a great, I think you sort of tripped into product, Danielle, if I say that appropriately. I don't think any of us really ever started our career with the idea of I want to be a product manager. I think many of us sort of were pursuing our passion. So, and then you fell into this space. So Danielle being in the healthcare space, another good person to tap her brain as to kind of even just getting a little bit more background into or understanding of how she landed where she is now. And also will say that she was one of our students in the last cohort that I think got plucked out by this CureLink company, really around the idea of just her understanding of product and where product can influence the transformation of health. So it's always my pleasure. I always say when you do the MDPM program, you make a relationship with me for life. These three are certainly here on their own free will and uncompensated. So I would say leverage them as much as you can in the next hour. All right. So this, if you have questions about the program, I'll share this link QR code right now. Anything that you have questions about with regard to the program itself, you can direct there. So I'm going to stop sharing and remind people. So if you weren't here at the beginning, is that we do have a Q&A sort of back channel. So if you see it on the bottom of your screen there under Q&A, I'm going to ask these panelists, we have a sort of set 5 questions that I'm going to discuss with them. But really the value of these webinars comes out of your own interaction. So please do ask questions in that channel, right? We will either respond on the back channel or I'll bring it to the front channel. But the more interactive we can make this, the better value there'll be for everybody. All right. So I'm going to start with Rohit. And the reason why I'm starting with Rohit is the first question we want to get to is really getting an understanding as to what's going on with AI inside your organization. Because everybody, each of them are coming at it from very different perspectives. And so we want to have a conversation with each of them about what is going on with AI within their organization itself. So Rohit, if you want to get us started.
Yeah, sure, Catherine. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me here today. It's great to be back with the MDPM community. So in answer to your question, Catherine, in our organization, AI has moved from proofs of concept into scaled production-grade deployment, and with a strong focus on business outcomes and operational efficiency. Our approach is very deliberate. AI is embedded into the existing product and service workflows, not positioned as a replacement layer. So let me give you an example of AI-powered chat assistants across digital and contact center platforms. From technical standpoint, these solutions are built on a layered AI architecture that includes intent classification model to accurately route customer requests, NLP-based response generation trained on curated policy-aligned content, confidence and risk scoring to determine automated resolution versus human escalation. Now, when confidence thresholds are met, AI resolve the issue end to end. When they are not, the interaction is escalated to a live agent with full conversational context. It is preserving continuity and reduce handle time. And from a business perspective, the value is measurable. Now we have lower average wait times, improved first contact resolution, higher agent productivity and utilization. Also improved customer satisfaction without workforce displacement. Internally, AI is also being used as a productivity and decision support layer. Tools like Microsoft Copilot are integrated in our delivery processes to summarize long email threads, synthesize requirements, and extract decisions from recorded meetings. In a complex delivery environment where multiple stakeholder, financial approvals, and solution designs are involved, this significantly reduce cycle time and cognitive load, allowing leaders to focus on execution and decision making. So in short, in our organization, AI is not an innovation showcase anymore. It's becoming a part of core operating fabric of digital product management, driving speed and consistency and better business outcome at scale. So that's
it's great.
that's what we're running in our company.
Yeah. Well, and I think what we talked about earlier, Rohit, too, was this idea that you were talking about how Rogers, and we all know Rogers, right? We interact with Rogers as customers. When you were talking a bit about the idea of the AI power bots and the chat assistants and how people were kind of, stressed out about the fact they might lose their job. Can you go share a little bit more about that experience?
See, yes, in a large scale, people are a little worried about jobs are on a stake. But on the other side, if you talk about in a real time scenario, things are not like this. We are by introducing AI chatbots or the assistants. We are actually uplifting the existing manpower. Now, what is happening after this introduction of new technology? Now, customer care executives are handling actual calls, actual technicals. They are uplifting their scale using the new technology by train themselves or by the organizations. So yes, I can say that by doing this, there are no as such job threats in the market now, especially in our side, but what we are looking into in our organization. So they are more like a technical development center instead of generally call centers.
Yeah. And I can share the same thing even in my profession. So there's many, I think, professors that worry that, AI is going to take over our jobs. And I think to Rohit's point, the whole idea of all it's done in my job is made me more excited about my job, right? Because I think about how much more knowledge I can create and how the opportunity is for me to offload some of my mundane work and really focus on real value add work. And so it is definitely requiring me to upskill a bit. But to your point, Rohit, I think the first step one is that, just because AI is coming in, if you're feeling like your skills are becoming obsolete, then it requires you to kind of say, oh, you know what? And that's probably why you're here, right? Is that, okay, what do I need to do in order to make sure that that I follow the trend and my job gets more exciting and more meaningful and creates new opportunities. So thank you for kicking us off, Rohit. Chris, over to you. What's going on with the Suncor?
Yeah, I think much to what you were saying earlier is that, for us, AI has been more about productivity and quality and less about that workforce reduction. And so I'm really lucky at our company. We're really trying to embrace AI primarily as a productivity enhancement tool, and especially in that digital delivery space, we're using it for coding assistance, code reviews, test case generation, design reviews, like from a digital product perspective, and really just trying to increase speed and quality without replacing those people. Really stuff like on the day-to-day side, like tools like Copilot and all that kind of stuff have been, really great opportunities for us just to write, analyze, and communicate, and it really just meaningfully changes how we get work done here. But there has been some hesitation, and so obviously in a big corporation like an enterprise that we work in, it's hugely, I think like people have a big hesitation to use it because of the data that we have to expose potentially to these large language models. And so we've stood up some governance committees that actually review all platforms that are coming in that leverage AI capabilities. And then anytime that we're actually developing AI things like, especially in our customer orchestration journey, like we've got a lot of challenges that we have to overcome. I talk a lot about the using AI to market to AI because we're in this stage where we're using AI tools to try to break through our marketing message to a device that may be using AI to fight against that noise. And so, how do you make it forces us to make our products more valuable and more our value prop to be just a lot higher, so people need to see those messages. So our focus as a company is really on data protection, security, the responsible use of data, and then ensuring that we're not leaking sensitive enterprise data while we're still capturing real value for our users. So I think in total we see AI as an accelerator of that human capability, not a replacement for it, I think, at the end of the day.
Excellent. Thank you. And so I did see that you were typing a message, I think, to Pamela here. So I'll let Chris continue to do that. But even in the spirit of that question that Pamela is asking in the Q&A, Chris, touches on that just in his explanation about the whole idea that no program or no webinar or no anything is ever going to get us on top of this thing. It really comes down to curiosity. And it sounds like, Chris, from your explanation, AI is bringing in a lot of uncertainty in the organization for sure. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of, tension around. But, I'm going to get to this in a second, talk a lot about where product people can really help in this journey, primarily because we're really good at kind of, I always think, filtering or absorbing uncertainty and saying, yeah, everybody, it's going to be okay, right? But on top of that, we also have to make a huge effort to continue to educate ourselves. And so, Pamela, great question. I'll let Chris continue typing his answer to that, and then we'll definitely revisit it at the end of the webinar to give other people a chance if we have time. All right, Danielle, over to you. So in this new adventure that you're on, right, in the healthcare sector, tell us a little bit about what's going on with AI inside your organization.
Absolutely. So because I work in a human services organization where caring for the mental health of our members always needs to come first, our relationship with AI is very intentional. We're not looking to replace any of that human connection or human-led care. But operationally, there have been opportunities to introduce automation and AI in our workflows, but so far that's been in a little bit more of a behind the scenes capacity. So simply put, for current state, AI can support with the admin, but we let mental health professionals deliver the care. So think like things like note summarization or quality insights. They can actually help our care team do what they do best, spend more time delivering that care, and let AI take care of some of the administrative burden. However, while all care plans and clinical assessments remain fully led by those licensed mental health professionals, that doesn't mean that there's no place for AI in front of members. And this is what I get excited about. And that's exactly what we're exploring next. So if I look to the open market to kind of get some indicators, we're seeing 3 million users a week on ChatGPT alone, showing signs of self-harm, psychosis, emotional attachment. That doesn't even include stress or anxiety or just regular depressive symptoms, like you might be having a rough day, which would be much more commonplace. We're also seeing that more than half of the adult population is already using AI for everyday tasks. And leading with the trend to no surprise is that younger generation. But the difference there is that they're already using AI for mental health support. So, why are these things important for me as a product manager? It shows that the members that I support through this workplace benefit, they're already showing signs of adoption and engagement and openness to AI. And that young population is also going to make up a large chunk of the workforce in just a couple of years. So, this member facing or user facing problem is no longer hypothetical or future state, it's here. And it's a problem for me to solve as a product manager. And if you know product managers, you know how we love to solve problems. So, I'm really excited about all that's going on in my workplace right now.
Excellent. Thank you, Danielle. All right, I'm going to sidetrack here for one moment. Just Warren asked a question, I think that's an interesting follow-up to this. So Warren says, you mentioned that AI is most effective when embedded into existing workflows. So Chris, just prepare that I think this is kind of coming your way, because I think that's something that you had said, rather than positioned as a replacement layer. From a product leadership perspective, what signals tell you that a workflow is ready for AI augmentation versus AI will actually introduce more friction or risk? So Rohit's actually typing an answer to that, Warren. I'm going to get Chris to speak to it. So this is the benefits of these dual channels. And certainly, Rohit, once Chris is finished, if you want to add your thoughts to this, I think Warren would really appreciate it. So Chris.
Yeah, I think you have to weigh out, and it's going to be very specific to what AI you're looking at, but like I think you have to weigh out the value that you're and the outcome that you're trying to achieve versus the technology. The technology should be like the secondary thought for me. It's always going to be is the outcome that we're trying to achieve or the value we're trying to unlock by implementing this type of AI technology actually worth the risk or the friction that we're providing, right? And so like not all friction is bad friction, like it can be good friction that's associated, but I think that that's really the key for me is you know is the user going to accept it? Is it going to be something that's going to, improve the experience, the UX that we're trying to put out there? Um, or is it just something that somebody ideated in the background and because it has AI attached to it that they want to do, right? So I think you have to really assess at a deep level and ensure that we're providing this, value back from a product perspective.
And one thing I'll reiterate there, Chris, thank you, and Chris mentioned it, but all of our panelists are sort of coalescing around this idea that us as humans, not only are we consumers of these products and services that we consume in the marketplace, but at the end of the day, we go to work every day. And I think what Chris is saying is really that one of the big value propositions is that mundane work although it pays you, it doesn't get you to the self-actualized state. So what we're talking about here are, career professionals who are like, you know what, I want to love my job. And in order for me to love my job, allowing me to offload some of this mundane work will only allow me more capacity, right, to do the things I love to do. Like I'm waiting for that great product to actually automate meetings, right, or get a way to share information. And I know we're starting to get there, but if you look at your calendar as a professional and the amount of time you might spend in meetings, I mean, that's not really value add work in a lot of ways. It feels mundane. And so I always think a great KPI on great AI enabled, products is that we just love our job more. And we can find balance, and we can maybe even get to the concept of like work-life balance, which would be amazing for all of us that work too hard. And so it really does come down to flipping the narrative or changing the mandate, as Chris said, like evaluate these opportunities across multiple different perspectives and leverage AI where you're going to get the best benefits, not only for your customers and your consumers, but for your employees themselves.
Yeah, one thing I
So
might add,
yeah, yeah.
sorry, I might add is that, like there still has to be a human element put into product management. Like you you can be a great prompt engineer, the best prompt engineer that possible, and get like AI or like Copilot or ChatGPT or something to knock out a product requirements document, but you still need to put your thought into how it builds out that document, how it builds out those cases so that you're developing the right thing. Like AI only knows as much as you put into it. And as a product professional, you really need to understand like, the detail is key, and if it knocks out a PRD and like you push that out to your product team, there's most likely 5 or 6 things that they're just going to look at and go, really? And like so you really do need to review it and go through and make some adjustments because trusting the AI to kind of get what's in your head out onto the page is just not going to happen. So yeah,
No.
not
And
really.
it could, but the result's going to be way less effective, right, Chris, than if you actually have a human in the loop, using our brains in a lot of the ways, bringing that to the equation. Okay, I see Rohit is still typing away, so I
Yeah.
think we will. Did you want to comment anything on that question before we move on to the next one, Rohit?
Yes, I can. So, see, from a product leadership perspective, we know a workflow is ready for AI when it's repeatable, well-defined, and backed by trusted data. If the process is inconsistent, highly variable, or lack proper governance, introducing AI usually creates more friction than value. But for the particularly for the friction, to remove friction, we first standardize and govern the workflow, clean up the processes, and based on the existing rules, we define new rules and ensure reliable data. Only after that we layer AI so it augments work instead of creating new risks.
So what's so interesting about that is because I know these people very well, Rohit just gave you the engineering answer, right? So he's, coming at from and Chris gave you the sort of the strategy answer, right? And so they're both equally as compelling, right? And so Warren, hopefully that answered your question. But it was a great question. So thank you for giving it to us. All right, we're going to move on to Danielle now. And so the second question really is the idea that, and all these panelists have sort of talked about this already, but as a product leader within your organization, how is the business coming to you for advice? So for example, like most people within an organization, if they had a question about AI, they would go over to our IT department, right? So they would look for people who know technology and are branded in technology. But as product people, can you share a little bit about if the business is coming your way? And if so, what are they asking you to clarify, Danielle?
Absolutely. And what's actually interesting is how they're coming to us. So the questions aren't very simple around like what tools should we buy? What should we be looking into? They're asking how should we be thinking about this and what's safe? Help me understand the safety components, what's useful. And also in my industry, especially in the B2B industry, how can we be responsible for both our customers and their employees? So there's kind of that dual layer as well. And in that industry that I work in, trust and transparency is huge in healthcare. So a lot of the questions that I get down through the business are generated from clients on how we use AI in our business. And Catherine, to your point, they're different than technical questions. They're different than a security assessment. They're more strategic. Like, how do you assess the long-term effectiveness of your AI? And is data collected for your AI systems from trusted sources? And tell me what those are. And how, like, give me a little peek into, the sausage. How does your AI work at a high level to personalize well-being recommendations and interventions? So we're often explaining things at a client level to get their buy-in and their understanding and their trust and confidence in what we're building. So these types of questions are making their way to the product team. And I think it just really illustrates that we really do sit at that intersection of business value. We understand the user impact. And then from a technical feasibility perspective, we either know enough to be dangerous and to be able to respond to that, or we know who to bring in to help support some of those responses.
Excellent. Thank you. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Danielle. Like I think it's our responsibility as product leaders, honestly, to, be able to be translators. So less about education, but more about, that translation between, what this technical thing is and unwrapping that for a business stakeholder that may not be as technical. And so, when I think about AI as it exists today, and like that word has become like this huge buzzword, especially amongst business stakeholders. And as soon as you either mention AI, they're either, there's a lot of excitement because they know that, this could improve the experience, or there's a lot of hesitation and fear. And so, really, it's that translation about what we're doing and, clarifying things like I did recently, like what's the difference between AI and automation? Automation in a platform is not utilizing AI. It's just like a trigger of a process where AI is like this data-fed large language model that's really just like trying to produce this outcome or to give you insights. And so it's really trying to separate that hype from the opportunity and aligning AI use cases to real customer problems and business outcomes. So our role has kind of grown and evolved into this really cool place where we're this product translator and we connect all that strategy and technology and human impact together for our business.
Yeah, and I might be a bit more provocative here because I actually wonder whether or not product people are the only people that could really be that translator. And I give you that with a real example of a project I'm working right now with Home Depot International is around the idea of these like the conversations with the senior vice presidents are all about the fact that capabilities are bumping into each other, meaning that they have a product called Magic Apron that customers are using, but it's giving them different recommendations. And so they're like, why is this happening? And the conversations directly with their tech team can explain how the models are working and why those why they're getting confused, but they can't explain it in a way that that resonates with the business. And so this is the part that you think like you couldn't answer that question. In fact, myself, I had to talk to one of my AI colleagues to really get them to draw out for me why these are bumping into each other so that I could truly understand. And I think that's the point, Chris, is that I don't think product people know the answers. Like, honestly, I think we're not afraid to ask the questions, right? Like, I'm never afraid to look stupid because I'm always in the state of I don't know, right? So you know how to frame a question and you know how to interpret the answers, but I couldn't address that without understanding what the business meant by capabilities bumping into each other, and B, that I could truly understand how the models work so I could understand where that confusion was coming from. And so it's almost like a mindset that we have of humility and not afraid to go to our homework, and honestly, sometimes not afraid to being wrong, right? Like it's
A lot of times in meetings I sit in, like if you bring a technical person in, like an architect or something like that, you look over to your business person on the side and you just see the glazed over look in their eye when they start talking about architecture. And so I think it's really important. And one of the big benefits as product leaders is that you have to be a really strong storyteller, right? And so you have to tell the story of how this AI is actually going to benefit you and what that is going to look like. And in my organization, I own the user UX designers sit on the product team and that sit under me. And so we come like locked and loaded with some visual kind of like, here's how it's going to run through our app and what it's going to look like at the end of the day for our end user experience. Because our business stakeholder cares more about that than they do the architecture that's built in the background. But to Danielle's point, like more concerned about how we're using the data to get there, right? And so I think it's really important that we're at that table and we're the one almost leading that conversation.
Yeah, and going back to my earlier slide around emotional intelligence, Chris also has the emotional intelligence to know when somebody's glazed over, right? And that's also a skill, right? Because you're like, these people are not speaking the same language, and therefore I need to intervene. So, Rohit, on this question, is there anything you wanted to add?
Yes, I'll give you a real example as well. To answer your question, yes, the business definitely coming to product leaders like us for the AI guidance. Now, it's not surprising. We have proven that AI can boost productivity, escalate execution, and deliver tangible product results, which build trust and credibility. Now, why they are seeking us out? Because AI has raised stakes on decision. Applied in the wrong context, it can immediately impact customer experience, operational efficiency, and trust. Today is no longer like, can we use AI? The real question is, should we, and how we do it responsibly? That's where the product leadership is essential. So I'll give you an example here. A business leader asked recently, can AI reduce call volume and improve customer experience? This answer is relevant to my previous answer. So instead of jumping straight to chatbot, we paused and assessed, is the workflow deterministic? Where is precision critical, and where is approximate acceptable? So the reality check revealed that many issues were repetitive, predictable, and caused by process gaps, not the right fit for AI yet. So our solution path was very deliberate. We started with rule-based automation, implemented standardized decision tree, built clean and governed knowledge bases. Only after stabilizing these foundations did we layer AI selectivity. Yes, at points like intent decision, assistant responses, where it truly added value. So this approach ensure AI is scalable, reliable, and impactful. So so nowadays, like that's why the businesses come to us in today's world for judgment, guidance, and trusted delivery in AI-driven world.
Excellent. Thanks, Rohit.
Yeah.
So I see the question here brought in the chat. So we will try to shape that into what I'm going to talk to Danielle next. I do need to say though, my dog is having a great sleep behind me. So if you hear snoring in the background, it's my bulldog. So hopefully you can't, but it's a snow day, so we're all home. So last week when we were having our planning session for this webinar, Danielle was sharing an interesting story about a discussion between her and her CEO. So Danielle, did you want to share that with the group?
Absolutely. So I had the opportunity to present what we're working on with AI to our CEO last week. And I'm very lucky and fortunate that our CEO has a product background. So he understands the job function and the thinking that comes with it. But what was interesting is that in some of my prep for the session, I was researching how our clients use AI in their businesses. And that was more so to understand like how we should expect our clients to react as we begin implementing and integrating AI into the member or user experience. But I came across several concepts that really resonated with me. So did you all know that the overwhelming majority of Gen AI subscriptions are paid by employers right now? So on the surface, that sounds like progress. And I bet that number is exponentially bigger than it was 6 months, a year, or two ago. It's telling us that AI is now becoming mainstream in the workplace. And many of us have access to these tools every day. You see the Copilot, maybe you've got the enterprise subscription to ChatGPT. But I think what it also raises is a more important question around you have the tool, but who's actually overseeing how these tools are used? Who's training teams on how to use them, how to use them responsibly, and in ways that actually create real value for the organization? And that's where this pilot versus passenger idea comes in. Because when everyone has access to AI, but either no shared understanding or different levels of understanding of how to use it, we're likely to end up with a lot of passengers and not a lot of pilots. But before I go any further than that, let me kind of define what is meant with pilots and passengers. And I take no credit for this. This was just found in my research, but it really resonated with me and really is helping to shape how I think about AI and its impact to digital product management. So a passenger uses AI in the way that most of us would use something like Google Maps. You type something in, you take what comes out, you don't challenge it, and you hope that it gets you where you want to go. Or they might not even use AI at all. But a pilot, on the other hand, is actively in control at all times. They understand the destination or that opportunity or that problem to solve. They can provide direction, and they know when to trust the instrument and then when to override them as well. They're not just going to blindly accept the output. They're going to evaluate it, refine it, and they're also going to take responsibility for that outcome. And to me, that really sounds like the toolbox of a product manager. So not only is there opportunity for us as product managers to become pilots in the way that we use AI in our workplaces, but also how we are open to learning and integrating AI into digital transformation opportunities.
So interesting. And this is why, Brett, I was like, I know Chris answered your message in or your question in the chat, but I knew Danielle unpacking this difference between a passenger and a pilot, because I think this really resonates to what you're asking here, right? A lot of people, and especially senior leaders, quite honestly, I think a lot of senior leaders would just love to retire at this point in the game. Like they are like, this is causing so much change, so many things. I would just like to tap out early and enjoy my retirement, because the fundamental change that's ahead of us, I mean, people are relating it back to the days of, the internet commercialization. But I lived through those days and they didn't feel like this, right? It was more gradual as people got onto the internet and started to find, we had more time. This adoption of what you call sort of Google related tools and using it like a search engine seems to almost feel like it's happening overnight. And so I love this idea of pilots and passengers. And I want to go to Chris now and get him to share a little bit light on, when you look at the skills and competencies of trying to find these pilots, what do you look for, Chris, when you're trying to hire talent?
Yeah, like I think I've mentioned a little bit before. I think it's not the most technical person in the room. It's the person who can lead through that uncertainty and then unlock that value responsibly. So for me, I look for someone that, again, has that storytelling and influence ability. Change only happens when people understand the why and not just the what we're doing, right? Again, I look for someone has curiosity and continuous learning. So like no one is an expert in everything AI related. You can't be. Like this thing branches so far beyond what we do. But the most important trait it's being really instinctively curious, I guess I would say. Great pilots are always exploring emerging technologies and asking, where could this unlock value for our customers, our business, our platform? What are we doing with it? I also look for like really good business judgment and the ability to prioritize. I think if we're talking about pilots, they're very strong at identifying the right problems to solve, not just the most interesting technology to implement or things that they want to do. Like what's the right problem that we're trying to get to the end of. They're comfortable working within the gray, and so when things aren't black and white and it's ambiguous, like how are they, prioritizing their time and making decisions? It's got to be a really good thinker that way. And then I think finally, like for me, it's like really cross-discipline thinking. So, you understand enough about AI concepts, user experience, and business strategy, and then you're able to connect those dots on all three of those things. So, like really just working through that ambiguity to be able to, use your curiosity, your judgment, building a strong narrative, and then chasing those outcomes.
Yeah. And I'll because again, I can say this, you guys can't, but I would also go as far as to say that university environments aren't developing these skill sets in a very effective way, because we develop the business leaders in a business school, we develop the technical leaders in a computer science program, and we develop really the people who are understanding user experience design in our engineering UX space, right? So that's the challenge, is that nobody comes out of an undergrad program ready to hit product. And then you need product experience, right? So all these kind of things become really like somebody who's willing to absorb what they don't know and quick, in order to be able to look at, this opportunity from what Chris mentioned as different perspectives. And I think that is really critical, because we're not wired that way, right? Just by our own way that we shape our early stage education. And then you get caught in kind of seeing things from one perspective and creates attributions in how we view things. And that is a real lock until you unlock it. And I think it's a conscious decision to unlock it, right? To really embrace what you don't know. So Rohit, anything to add to the pilot conversation? Oh, you're on mute.
See, although everything has been covered by my other panelists, but I really like this pilot metaphor because pilots don't just know how to fly. They understand risk, conditions, and responsibility. Sorry, my answer are technical back because I'm into technical delivery segment. For me, a modern AI product pilots has three blended competencies. First is AI technical literacy, not coding, but understanding such as what's the difference between automation, ML, and generative AI. Where AI is problematic by nature, how confidence threshold, or maybe training data or guardrail work. And a pilot knows that AI outputs are suggestion, not truth. And the second major one is user and contextual judgment. Let me throw a simple example. I just had returned from vacation and opened my mailbox. There was a single email thread and more than 50 or 60 replies, multiple teams, multiple viewpoints, decision buried deep in the conversation. In the past, before AI, this would have meant reading every message clearly, reconstructing a story manually, and hoping I didn't miss something important. That process could easily take 45 to an hour, I guess. This time I used Microsoft Copilot in Office. I asked it to summarize thread, highlight the decision that had already been made, identify any open risk, and suggestion response draft. And to be honest, like within a seconds, I had a clear picture of what was happening. What changed was not just speed. What changed was mental clarity this time. Instead of reacting emotionally or rushing a response, I could respond strategically. This is one of the quiet but powerful ways AI helps product leader by reducing cognitive overload and giving us back time to think. So that pilot behavior kind of use AI for speed and synthesis, applying human judgment for accountability. And third is the last one is the business and risk thinking. Pilot understand where AI creates leverage or introduce risk and where governance is required. So pilot like a don't chase AI feature. They design AI enabled system with some controls.
Yeah. And it is such a good analogy. I know Danielle gave us the disclaimer that it wasn't her. She took it, but I think Danielle, quite honestly, we might want to do a follow-up webinar and really unpacking, right, how these different, because you're so right, Rohit, your technical background kind of makes you look at these pilots a bit differently than the way Chris does, right? So which again comes back down to perspective. So Danielle, a question for you as we have only a few minutes left, and certainly bring in your views on pilots, but really interested to know where you're finding people. So people that can actually be pilots. Where is your organization looking for talent?
Great question. And I think some of what comes to mind, we've kind of touched on already. So I don't think it's about having all of the answers or all of the skills. It's more so about having the curiosity and the drive to learn. So Catherine, I think you put it so well before. You're not afraid to say, I don't know, but you take it the step further and say, I'm going to go find out. That's the difference. So pilots are also open to emerging technologies. They're not afraid of it. One important thing as well is that I think they tend to be leaders. And I don't mean that in the traditional sense. I mean, these are people who are leading through influence, often without formal authority, as we see within the product job function. They build strong relationships with their technical teams, and I noted this in one of the Q&A. They deeply respect the value that those teams bring. I would say it would be a big red flag if you wanted to spot a pilot that didn't see the value in having their technical team or technical counterpart as a thought partner. You might also be able to spot a pilot from a talent perspective if they're already automating their own work in small ways. They might be running small, low risk experiments, and they also are open to sharing informally with others. And I think these are the things that organizations should be looking out for, whether it's from a talent and hiring perspective or whether it's already within the organization to help identify these pilots early and then support them.
Yeah, you make a great point. I've often wondered whether or not we hire people like this, pilots, or we develop them. Because I think in a lot of ways, and I know Danielle, you're not operating with a massive HR shop like Chris and Rohit Hart, but I think informing your HR organization, even your hiring processes. Like if you look at hiring processes that are dated, I mean, in a lot of ways, these pilots will be like just, many of them that I come across, they're like, I'm not sure I want to work for a big company. Whereas I look at like what change Chris and Rohit are making inside their traditional companies. And I think those are like, I work a lot with government, desperately need pilots, right? And there's such great opportunities to work in those spaces, but our own HR processes can deter, right? Finding great people. So Chris, over to you. How do you find your pilots?
I think I'm in a very similar mindset to Danielle, though. Like, I think you find them, you start internally, right? Like, I think you look for those people, they're already in your organization, they're already automating workflows. They've embraced their early adopters of AI tools like Copilot or ChatGPT or whatever else it is. And, they're naturally comfortable. I've hired a lot of product leaders and, I would consider all of them pilots, but they come from different industries. And nothing actually, and to be honest, this may be like a controversial opinion, but like nothing makes me more, upset with the product industry is that when someone asks you for 10 to 15 years of product experience, like I don't want to hire somebody with 10 or 15 years of product experience. I want to hire somebody with 3 or 4 if I'm looking externally. And the reason being is because technology changed so much, and I don't want someone that's set in their ways. I want them to be open to a different mindset. And so, like I look internally first, and if I have to look externally, I look for those people, like Danielle said, natural experimenters, people that ask better questions, people that connect strategy to execution. It's all about that mindset. I do think, and this is going to be a plug for you, Catherine, like the MDPM program and like some of the other programs at Smith are like really great pipelines for people because you're already blending that business technology and leadership capability that mirrors what a real role looks like when you get out into the real world. And you're already talking about these new emerging technologies. And so some of those people are going to be more productive people and they're going to be risk takers, but they're going to be smart risk takers. Like you're going to get into an organization and they're going to grow. And so, I've been really looking for that. And so I really believe that you discover pilots, they're not hired, and then that mindset matters more than that pedigree that they've had. So
Yeah, yeah. And I agree with you, Chris. I think a lot of them come from, so many of the students we take into the MDPM program, they're already pilots. It's just the rest of the world doesn't know they're pilots, right? And in a lot of ways, you don't know why you're a pilot. And then you come into the program, you're like, oh, look at all these other pilots, and I'm like them, and this is who we are. And it creates an identity and a confidence to go out there and actually search down those products, those opportunities, right? Which I think we all have our own individual stories about what led us to this place. All right, Rohit, the last statement is for
Yeah,
you. How do you find your pilot?
yeah. The most interesting thing is pilots don't come from a single role. They
Yeah.
show up as a product manager, program leader, architects, delivery lead, sometimes even operation managers. So recently, one of my strongest pilot I have worked with was not in an AI role. So they were a delivery lead who started using AI to pre-review requirements, identify missing acceptance criteria, flag risk area before testing started. So they didn't automate blindly. They validated outputs, set guardrails, and knew when to stop. That's what pilots have in common: curiosity, technical awareness, and comfort saying no to AI when needed. So, in my opinion, organizations don't hire pilots. They create environments where pilots can emerge with trust, governance, and room to experiment safely.
Yeah, excellent. Well, and just to share my own personal story, I mean, I started in the product space with a company called Sun Microsystems, and my first job was their receptionist. So who knew? I mean, these pilots can live anywhere, right? You just have to
Yeah.
go looking for them. All right. So huge thank you to the panelists. As always, offering insight into what's going on in the real product world only happens when these guys give me their lunch hours. So I really do appreciate you doing that, Chris, a little bit earlier for you, we know. Here is again the QR code if you have any questions about the program. And so there is an upcoming, the next webinar will be the 25th of February. We're going to talk about actually architecting these AI capabilities. And so we've got Christians coming back, Dean and Abbas Sharma are all going to talk more about kind of getting under the hood around architecting these capabilities. And for those of you that were asking about the program itself, there is an info session from 12 to 1 on Monday, February 9th. And so I hope everyone is safe, depending on where you are in today's crazy weather. Thanks again to these three very special and dear people to me. I appreciate you spending the time, and to all of you who attended the webinar. It was great, great questions, great engagement, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, everybody. Take care.